Come on. This weather's wild, bro. Yesterday it was like 65 degrees. It was overcast, but we knew rain was coming in. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and everything was fine. The day before, it was like 71 degrees, sunny, one of the most beautiful days we've had in probably the last 2 months. And then today, it is 29 degrees currently, 20-mile-an-hour wind, and as you can see, there is, where I'm at, snow all over the ground, and it is currently still snowing. We had a bunch of rain move in last night, and I decided I wanted to come out and hike to a waterfall that I've never been to. I have a book called The Wayward Traveler, Back Roads and Waterfalls to North Georgia. I'll post a link in the description, so if any of you guys are interested, you can go on there. Dave and Tammy, along with their poodle Merlot, has put in tons and tons of work to create these books. There's one for North Georgia, there's one for Tennessee, and I believe they're coming out with one for North Carolina. At one point, they were also in the works of making a book for historical covered bridges. Anyways, I flipped through this book. I found a waterfall that I'd never been to and decided to come give it a go. Fortunately, it is in an area that I'm familiar with. This is the Cohutta Mountains in North Georgia. This is very, very unforgiving terrain. Dave's description, the Wayward Guide, trail description was basically park at the South Fork Trail head, which is just right across from Jack's River Fields campground, hike 3/4 of a mile, probably halfway there, so a 1/4 mile in, you should be able to start hearing and maybe even seeing the waterfall. I hear water for sure, don't see anything yet, so let's keep going. So this waterfall is called Shadow Falls, and by looking at the picture in the Wayward Traveler, it looks like it's probably a 35 to 40 foot waterfall. I don't think it's completely vertical. I think it's going to be more like a either a two-tier, a very light two-tier that almost looks like one, or just one kind of slide. And so looking at the United States Forest Service topo map that I have of the area, this South Fork Trail parallels the South Fork of Jack's River, and that is the river that Shadow Falls is going to call home, if I'm looking at everything correctly. What I'm seeing right here is a trail that looks like it probably goes down, and this is one of those areas where this rope may come in handy because, you know, after the rain and the snow and stuff, it looks like it could be pretty slick. So we're gonna ease down and see what it is. I think this is definitely Shadow Falls. It's pretty unfortunate. There's a big blowdown right here, right in front of the waterfall. So I'm not really going to be able to get any very good pictures, but hopefully the video will take an alright clip. Alright, so first things first, the 55 and 250 is definitely too big for a shot here, so we're going to swap this out for the 35. And we're going to run it at 35. I am running it in autofocus at the moment, but we're going to run it in manual. Running an f-stop at like 7 to begin with. But with it being overcast and dark right down in these bushes, I may stop it down even more to like a 4, maybe even a 3. So those pictures were okay. I think I'm actually going to f-stop it back up. We're going to go up to about f14. We're going to go to, we're on 1/100th of a second right now on the shutter speed. I want to get a real silky look in there on that long exposure, see what it looks like. That's still not giving me a real silky image. So I've got it, the shutter speed down to about 1/4 of a second on the delay. So let's see what that does. Now when you start getting down to like anything below or anything around 1/4 of a second to 1/2 a second, you really need a tripod, but I didn't carry mine in here today. I can hold the camera pretty steady to get 1/4 of a second delay on the shutter. And it looks okay, but if that tree was gone, man, these pictures would be pretty sweet. I know the camera doesn't really show it, but that's a pretty steep section right there. And it's slippery too. So we're in a good area to have a hand line. Why I brought the rope and didn't even use it. I'll tell you what, I've been a GoPro fanboy for as long as someone can be a GoPro fanboy. Since like the very first GoPro came out, I've owned at least one of every model. But man, I'm having so many problems the last few times out making videos. The batteries are dying at like 40%. The SD cards are giving me errors. I don't know what's up, but it's kind of aggravating having to keep taking the battery out, turning it back on, turning it off, doing all this. Like, just making our way down the South Fork Trail here. We're gonna try to get on up to Rich Cove. But check this out. Don't really get a chance to see a whole lot of mushrooms in the winter. These are young turkey tails. And they are usable. They do supply a host of vitamins. You probably don't want to eat them straight off the tree. You forage you a handful and then put them in a pot and boil them down into a tea or a broth, and then drink it or put it on as a topping on the food you're going to be eating, or in a soup or in a stew. But yeah, super nutritional when they're consumed that way. You know, when I hiked through here, when I was actually just hiking the trail, I don't really pay attention to things like that. All I know is water source. And even if it says it in the guidebook, like water source, South Fork of the Jacks River, point however many miles, you know, till your next water source. I've got one goal in mind, is making it to my next destination to sleep that night. When I come out on these day trips, I spend a lot more time reading the terrain, looking at the GPS, learning the features, learning the water sources. And so this is, even if I've been here before, it's all new. We've been hiking for about an hour, 10 minutes, and we've made it almost 2 miles, just about 1.75 miles, a little more than 1.75 miles since we left Shadow Falls. And we made it to an area on the map that's labeled as Rich Cove. And so basically you've got an intersection here of several trails, the South Fork Trail, Benton Macakye Trail, Pinholti Trail, and then this is the northern terminus of the Pinholti Trail, which goes like 300 some odd miles down to Alabama. It's a multi-use trail in that you can hike it and you can mountain bike it. And I know there's some sections further up north here in the Cohutta where horses are also allowed. And so with that being said, this section that goes back this way, I think from here to where the BMT cuts off not far from Shadow Falls, is also multi-use in that you can hike it, mountain bike it, and ride horses. I did see several places of horse manure along the trail back down through here, and there's several places where the horses have just torn up the trail and they've had to build up little berms on the side for people to walk around. So just be aware of that if this is something that you're looking forward to coming out and hiking. What we're going to do now, or what I'm planning to do now, is hike back up towards the falls. And I think I'm going to jump over on the BMT, hike the BMT up to the Forest Road, and then walk Forest Road 64 back down to the car. And that should give me roughly 5.5 or 6 miles of hiking today. So I made it back to the area that I just got finished telling y'all I was gonna hike up on my way out. And this is the Benton Macakye Trail. It goes up to the road at Dyer Mountain and then comes back down to the car. I was looking at the GPS on the way back, and it looks like it's about a 1/2 mile hike up to the road, and then 1/2 mile hike, give or take, down the road to the car. The road walk is all pretty much downhill. However, this section going up to the road starts climbing a lot of elevation. I was watching the time on the way back. I've got to be home by 4. It's 1 now. So that's 4 hours, and I have roughly an hour and 20-minute drive to get home. So what I've decided to do is just hike the South Fork Trail back out the way I came in. So I've probably still got a 30 or 45-minute walk out, and then I'm gonna get in my car, and I'm gonna, with a little bit of extra time I have, I'm gonna drive down. I'm gonna drive on around the corner to Jacks River Fields Campground and see if the gate's across the road. So we made it back to the car, and we have hiked a total of 4 miles. That's not including the other 1/2 to 3/4 miles that we hiked from the car to the waterfall. Initially, I didn't have my phone or my watch recording, so roughly we hiked 4.5 to 4 3/4 of a mile today. Per tradition, I like to, any established hiking trail that I go on, I like to give a review and a rating and what I think about it. And this is a word of caution. The Cohutta Mountains are a beautiful place, but please, 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 if you're gonna come here, make sure you do your research on the trails that you're gonna be hiking, and especially if you plan to do any off-trail hiking, like bushwhacking to a creek or a waterfall or any of those things. As I mentioned, the Cohutta Mountains are a very rough terrain, very unforgiving terrain, relentless. The weather here is unpredictable. It's a lot of steep up and down, high mountains, low valleys. The low valleys, almost all of them have a body of water that runs through it, and around that body of water is going to be thickets of mountain laurel and rhododendron, just super hard stuff to navigate through. So this trail that I was on today is labeled as the South Fork Trail number 140. I do not know how far it goes. By the map, it didn't go a whole lot further than where I was at in Rich Cove, where the Pinholti starts. But, you know, it's really hard to tell. It could go for another mile. It could go for another 5 miles. I don't know. However, the 4 or so miles that I hiked of it, I'm gonna rate it as a 6 or a 7. It was basically hiking the valley all the way up to Rich Cove. Rich Cove was basically a big mouth of the valley. When I was in Rich Cove, I could look up and I could see mountains all around that cove. So basically this valley that this South Fork Jacks River runs in is what this South Fork Trail follows, this valley all the way up to Rich Cove where the mouth is. Generally flat. You don't really notice much elevation going to Rich Cove. On the way back, you do kind of climb up a little bit, can get your heart pumping, get your blood moving. I did pull off my head cover at one point just to kind of air out a little bit, but it was never like I needed to derib completely. So like I said, 6 or 7 on the trail. I was disappointed that the waterfall, not that it didn't meet my expectations, but that there was a huge tree blocking like a good portion of the view of the waterfall. That's just one of those things that you're not going to be able to control. That's, you know, in the next high water event, it could wash out. I have no idea how long it's been there or how long it will be there. It's just one of those deals where maybe in like 6 months, I'll come back and check and the tree's gone and you can get a good view of the waterfall. I'm a sucker for waterfalls anyways. I love seeing all new waterfalls that I've not seen before. This was one of the ones that I've not seen. So on that aspect, I was glad to be able to come in and check it out for a relatively short hike. You know, if I had just went into the waterfall, checked out the waterfall and come back, I would have been done 2.5 hours ago and already been back home editing videos again. All right, guys, so here's our answer about the gate. It is most definitely closed. There's actually 2 gates here. It looks like they've tried to push one over, which is always the case around here. But here's a little sign that tells gates closed January 4th through mid-March. So they've been closed for about a month and a half now, and we got about another half a month to 3/4 of a month before they open back up. So anyways, guys, yeah, thanks for coming along on the adventure, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. So I am in no way affiliated or sponsored by Red Bull energy drinks. I just really like their drinks. I drink them often. However, Red Bull, if by some wild happenstance you happen across this clip and you're willing to expand past extreme athletes, hit me up. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for real,